All right, now the type of digestion we need to talk about with the sponges porifera. So we said they're filter feeders, so we know that they're having to get their food from the water that is flowing in through the intake pores, and they're being trapped either by the amoebocytes or they're being trapped by the collar cells that have the flagella beat back and forth to pull in their food. Now, the digestion itself is taking place inside the amoebocyte, so that's inside of a cell. So their digestion is called intracellular, which means within the cell. We had extracellular when we were talking about fungus because they release their food their enzymes to the outside. But now we have food being taken in within a cell. It's going to be taken in the collar cell, transferred to the amoebocyte where the digestion actually takes place. Now, there's no gut here. So, we have a true gut. There's going to be animals that have a gut that do the digesting, but they do not. They have this large open center called a central cavity. So, water is coming in through an intake pore into the central cavity, and from there, the food gets trapped by the collar cells, transfers the food to the amoebocytes, and then the large opening at the top, which is called the osculum, is going to be where the waste is expelled. But there's no true gut. We wouldn't see a gut because this animal doesn't have tissues. A gut would come from endoderm, and this animal doesn't have endoderm. He just has a multicellular construction where he has multiple cells doing different jobs, but they're not coordinated into tissues. So, with the porifera, we also have what are called spicules and spongin. And we talked about this a little bit a minute ago, but there are some specialized cells that secrete the spicules. The spicules are very, very sharp, and they are more of supportive in structure. They're small, they have needle-like construction that is either going to be from calcium carbonate. Some of them have silica spicules, which is a component of glass, and some of them also have this other tough protein called spongin. They're all going to have spicules, but remember, not all of them have spongin. So this is going to be a twofold function. It is going to help with the overall construction or the overall skeletal structure, but it's not a true skeleton, but it does give it support. It's also going to deter any kind of predator, because if the predator goes after the sponge, he's going to get this sharp spicule, which is also, from what I understand, very bitter in nature, and hopefully he will spit them out. Now, there are three classes based on the type of support system that they have. So this is the way they classify sponges. The first class, now the phylum is Porifera, the kingdom is Animalia. So keep your classifications in mind. Kingdom Animalia, the phylum is Porifera, and now we have classes. Our first class is Demospongii, and this is the largest one we have. This is the largest class. Their spicules are made of silica, which is glass-like. They do not have spongin, so they're not going to have that extra protein in there. And these are our marine sponges. They're also some in fresh water, and there's some in brackish water. If you're not familiar with what brackish water is, this is really where salt water meets fresh water. It's a little bit salty, but not as salt as marine. And this is going to be our largest class of sponges. Our next one is called Hexaactinellida, And these are also have spicules made of silica, and they don't have sponges as well. They commonly are called the glass sponges because they're very cup-like. You've probably seen a lot of these. They take the shape of a cup, and they are totally marine in environment, and they can live in the Arctic, and a lot of them get to be quite large. Okay, our third class is Calcarea, and they have spicules made of calcium carbonate. They do not have spongin, and these are marine. These are also our smallest of classes. So we have two of the classes that have spicules made of silica, and then we have one in which it is made of calcium carbonate. Now, with reproduction, our sponges are capable of both asexual and sexual. Sponges are actually hermaphrodite, where they have both the male and the female reproductive parts in the same sponge. So, if they're reproducing, asexually, it's going to be through fragmentation, where one sponge just fragments and breaks into a bunch of pieces, and each piece becomes a new sponge. Budding is actually where a bud buds off of the sponge, falls to the bottom of the ocean floor, and it is a new sponge, or they reproduce by gemmules. Gemmules are little asexual larvae, if you will, that are mobile, and when they fall to the ocean floor, they also can become a new sponge. Now, if their sexual reproduction if that's the means that they're reproducing, the eggs and the sperm are within the sponge. They are retained within the collar cells of the sponge. And eggs sometimes will be released, and when they are, the sperm is also released into the water, and that's the means of sexual reproduction. So having that eggs and sperm in the same sponge means that sponge are hermaphroditic.